So in May of this year, I'm going to be making a visit to see the USS New Jersey, which is a Iowa class battleship.
You lucky
Um,
devil.
and I'm going to get to see her from the dry dock, from inside the bottom of the dry dock. Now the Iowa class ships, they're roughly, give or take, about the size of Titanic as far as length and as far as uh,
So
maybe.
to be exact,
Go
they
ahead.
are 5 feet longer than Titanic and 16 feet wider.
5 feet longer, 16 feet wider. What about
Yes.
in displacement tons? Do you know what the difference is between the two, or
I don't think they had quite the displacement Titanic had.
okay,
I think it's close.
okay. But that's probably the only time that I will ever get a chance to experience a ship of that size from standing so close that I will actually be able to touch, her rudder. I'll be able to touch, or rudders, I guess, because she's got twin rudders. Um, to touch the blades of the propeller, and to basically stand underneath a ship of that size. So I'm looking forward to that. And that was one of the main reasons why I wanted to bring James on here, because we're going to talk a little bit about Iowa class battleships. We're going to talk a little bit about the New Jersey, but there were four built, and I'm going to let James go into it. So let me get James's images up here really quick.
Now, have either of you toured any naval museum shows?
Well, we went to the Midway together.
Awesome. I've been to the Midway.
So I've
Midway,
been
I think
I've been on
Battleship.
board the Lane Victory, which is a like a Liberty ship, but a Victory class, Victory ship. I've been on board the Jeremiah O'Brien, which is a Liberty, and I've been on board smaller uh, museum ships, destroyers and submarines. But
All
I've
right. So
yeah,
I was going to say, just running from West Coast to East Coast, I've been on the Midway, the USS Cavala, the USS Stewart, which are both at the Galveston Naval Museum. I did the dry dock tour of the USS Texas in November. USS Kidd, that's the one that's geographically closest to me. The Alabama, which the USS Drum is also there, and the USS North Carolina.
wow,
It's a lot easier to tour naval vessels because there's just so many more. Whereas ocean liners, I mean, unless I'm forgetting one, there's just the Queen Mary because you can't tour the Big U. Am I correct on that?
yep. Unless you got $1,000,
Right, which I don't have to tour the ship as much as I would like to.
right? Um, I did forget one. Shiloh, you should have reminded me. We were on the Midway
Hmm.
together.
I said that.
He
Oh,
did. He
he
said
did.
that.
He did say that. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and
you've been on
I've
there
been
numerous times, right?
yeah, lots of times, yeah. But I've been to other museum ships, like submarines. I've been aboard some Russian subs and American subs
Yeah. Can
that
you
are
believe
in.
I never went aboard the Russian submarine in at the Queen Mary? Never been
You know,
aboard
I
it.
was about to ask you guys that because I know that sub is there. What's the what is the deal with that sub?
Oh God. Okay,
Well,
so that's a.
Give me
Let's
the
say
Cliff Notes version,
well,
as short as you can make it.
it's a
it's a risk right now, but
it's a Foxtrot class Russian diesel submarine,
yeah.
um, built in the early '70s.
Hmm.
It was brought to Long Beach in '97. They had actually removed a portion of the rock jetty that surrounds the ship, so they could actually float it into place, and then they placed the rocks back to form the jetty. Um, it had been uh, it was a really popular tour, but the guy that owned the submarine died, and it got transferred to this business associate or whatever that owns it, but representation and responsibility just left. No maintenance,
Gotcha.
no no upkeep whatsoever. And it finally got to a point to where they had to close the submarine. They couldn't give tours on board anymore.
Gotcha.
It's had flooding. It's been invaded by
Raccoons.
raccoons, cats.
Yeah.
It's been in danger of sinking a couple of times. The outer hull is a complete rust, nightmare.
Right.
I've been told that her inner hull is halfway decent, but apparently it does have some issues. The city wants to get rid of it, but the expense for getting rid of it is the problem.
Yeah.
To
Well, they also have
go ahead.
the whole thing with the owner thing is still an issue as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who's going to be responsible for it? But yeah,
And that like the controversy of I was trying to make a Titanic reference. You know how like Titanic people get like all uppity if you start talking about like the swapping Olympic
yeah,
Titanic conspiracy
yeah,
theories. So Queen Mary people will get upset about talking about the submarine.
yeah, yeah.
Gotcha.
We
Well,
would
to be
all
fair, the switch theory is ridiculous, but we're not going to get into that.
right, exactly. So getting rid of the submarine is like the ultimate thing that we would love to see
Yeah.
because it just doesn't belong there. I never really thought it belonged there.
No, and on top of that, if the submarine is gone, then that ticket booth and former gift shop would be
The
it would get
Quonset
rid of
hut.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Get rid of the
and
Quonset hut. Yeah.
that would just make when you take a picture of the ship, you would actually get a picture of the ship, not other things in the foreground.
I agree.
So that'd be nice as well.
So James, I think you can probably see it now. I've got the comparison photo that you got there. So go ahead and give us a little explanation on the comparison photo.
Yeah, so like we started off talking about the the length, the width of the ship comparison to Titanic. This is how the Iowas compared in size to previous generation battleships that the United States built. It's funny that they have the South Dakota class up there at the top. I guess they're doing that because it was smaller than the North Carolina class, but the South Dakota class, which the Alabama is a part of, was a newer class of ship than the North Carolina, and I guess again because the North Carolina is just slightly bit longer, that's why they did it that way. But yeah, it was just more of a comparison to show you how big the Iowas are compared to the ships that came less than 10 years before it.
Right. So these are all basically like right in that World War II era, late 30s to early 40s.
Oh, definitely,
Okay.
because at the time of Pearl Harbor, most of the U.S. fleet, I'm sure you've seen pictures of the Arizona. We all have a good idea of what she looked like. She was like a dreadnought ship. Most of the U.S. fleet was like the Arizona. The Arizona was almost the age of the Olympic when the Olympic was scrapped at the time of the attack.
Wow.
And a lot of our ships were aged like that at the time of Pearl Harbor. So, yeah, after Pearl Harbor, this was the ships you're seeing here was the World War II, like you say.
And if you could make the comparison really quick between like North Carolina, which was the class just before the Iowas, if I remember correctly.
So they've got it a little mixed up here. The Iowas were last, the South Dakotas were second to last, and the North Carolinas were before that.
Well, they really messed me up, didn't they? But okay,
Yeah, like I said, I think they did this graphic just because they did it this way. I think just because the North Carolinas were slightly longer than the South Dakotas. That's what I think.
But I mean,
It looks
you
like
talk
that,
about the size comparison. I mean, the jump in size between
Right.
those two classes, the South Dakota and the North Carolina, and the Iowa, and which I understand that not to I don't know if you know very much, but I knew that there was another class of battleship that was even on like the drawing board to follow the Iowas that were never
Yes.
constructed.
Yeah, that would have been the Montana class, which I was very sad that they did not make those. What happened there was uh, the Montana class was supposed to be the answer to Japan's Yamato.
Okay.
And what happened was essentially Midway. I think it was Midway and the Battle of the Coral Sea. Is at that point in the war was when the United States kind of figured out that air superiority and not big boats with big guns was not only going to end up winning the war, but it was going to be the wave of the future.
Yeah.
So the Montanas were scrapped. There were supposed to be 6 Iowas in total. There were supposed to be Kentucky and Indiana. The hulls were constructed, but they never saw the light of day past that.
Yeah. Wow. So we're lucky.
However,
I guess we're lucky to have all. I mean, we still have all four. There's only one North
yes,
Carolina, correct? Is there any South Dakota? Oh, the Alabama is a South Dakota. You said.
the Alabama is a South Dakota, and the Massachusetts, which is also preserved, they are South Dakotas. North Carolina only had one sister ship, USS Washington, and she was scrapped.
Okay. So out of, let's see, we've got 4, 6, 4, 6, 8, 4, 6, 8. So out of 8, there's 5 left, right? Or 6 left.
6. The 4 Iowas. No, me and Matt don't work together. The 4 Iowas, the North Carolina, the Alabama, and the Massachusetts.
And the Massachusetts. Okay. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. 6 out of 8. 6. Yeah. 6 out of 8. Wow. All right. I'm gonna move on to the next picture here. So we're looking at all 4 Iowas. Go ahead and give us a little explanation on this photograph.
Okay. I'm just waiting for it to come up. Just bear with me a second.
Sure. No problem.
I'm pretty sure I know which one you're talking about, though. Okay. Yes. So this is the only time in history that all 4 Iowas ever sailed together.
Wow. That's an
And
awesome photo. What year was this about?
this was, I believe, in 1953. If it wasn't 53, it was 54.
Okay. So
Yeah,
I put this
and
out of chronological order because I was trying to place them in chronological order, but I wanted to show all 4. I think because the next one I'm going to show are the construction photos, but
right.
But this
Yep.
is, as far as you know, this was the only time, right? That we're all 4 together.
It is the only time in history that they sailed together. The New Jersey's YouTube page actually did a video on this a while back, and I forget the exact reason, but it was something to the they put them all together, and they had them together for I think one mission. This was during peacetime, or if it was during the Korean War, it wasn't actually near Korea, and they had them all together. And eventually, what ended up happening that they figured out. There were 2 reasons that it only happened one time. For one, Pearl Harbor. If you remember Battleship Row,
Right. You don't want
they
them all in
wiped
the
out
same spot.
all of our fleets. Yes, exactly.
Makes
Yeah.
sense.
So after that point, they kept 2 in the Atlantic and they kept 2 in the Pacific. So that was one reason why they only had them together once. One of the other reasons was this was after World War II. We were pretty much the only country that had battleships of this caliber in the world. So there was also the thought, well, there's nothing that can really compete with this type of squadron, so we don't really need to have all 4 of them together.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, this being the only time they ever sailed all together, they were all in the same place at the same time.
It's a good thing that they at least were able to do it once. I mean,
Yeah.
Save for photo prosperity.
Yeah, and I forget what was the name of the officer that had the foresight to take this photo or recommended being taken, because I think someone else was like, this ain't no big deal. Yeah, it is. It's the only time they were ever together.
Wow, that's incredible. So
And actually, we have a comment, King of Battleships. That picture was taken when the captain of Wisconsin realized Missouri was going to be decommissioned, so they did that photo. Yes, and I believe Missouri was decommissioned the year after this photo was taken.
wow.
Hmm.
So we're taking a look at construction photos of the Iowa.
Yes.
Looks like we can see the keel or one of the longitudinal girders. But it looks like I think the center one we're seeing is the keel there.
Right.
And
Mhm.
now these were all built in the were they built? See what yard were they built in?
So they were built in two different shipyards. Iowa and Missouri were built at the New York Naval Shipyard, whereas New Jersey and Whiskey were built at Philadelphia.
Whiskey being Wisconsin.
Yes.
Okay.
She has the temper.
And I think this is also an Iowa photo. Says New York Yard, 1940, USS Iowa, BB-61, view looking forward.
Yeah, which makes sense because if you look at the back end of that photo, I don't know. I always described it as the bow on the Iowas. You ever notice it gets really really thin, and when you get forward, I always kind of likened it to like a crocodile snout.
I agree. Yeah, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. So we're looking at the launching of the USS Missouri, and you said Missouri was built where again?
Let's see, Missouri was built with Iowa at New York.
In New York. Okay. Were they built side by side, or how did that work out? You know.
No, I forget exactly the order in which they went into service, but I know Missouri, she was either second to last or last to go into service.
Moonser's
I think
asking.
you had two in service basically a year before the other two went into service.
Were all four? Did all four see service in World War II, or did some make it after the end of the war?
No, they were all in World War II.
They were all in World War II. Okay. Let's see here. The next one. So this is the New Jersey at sea, and I couldn't date this, but I'm looking at the reconnaissance aircraft on her stern. I guess that's reconnaissance. Is it reconnaissance or is it torpedo?
Let's see. Um, it is it's kind of hard to tell in that photo.
Do you know if this is World War II or would this be possibly like Korean War era?
I'm going to say this is pre-Vietnam because if you look at the bow, she does not have that what you the disc cone cage antenna is not yet mounted to the ship. So this would be pre-Vietnam.
Pre-Vietnam, but it could be Korean War, possibly.
It
And
could
not
be,
okay,
yes.
gotcha. When do you know when they in Vietnam era did she still have her stern um, crane? She didn't have aircraft though anymore by Vietnam, correct?
Um, I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure, but as far as I know, the crane was never removed.
Okay, King of Battleships might know. King of
Yeah,
Battleships.
yeah, he might know. He kind of reminds me of Wolf Lord in my Discord.
Right,
He's like our warships guy.
right, exactly.
In fact, he's giving us the dates. Iowa was commissioned February 24th, 43. New Jersey, May 23rd, 43. Missouri, June 11th, 44. And Wisconsin, April 16th, 44.
Now we're looking at New Jersey, and boy, I'm probably gonna screw this up. The Richelieu,
Richelieu.
uh, French.
Yes.
Okay, so this would be Atlantic service, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Anything to tell about this photograph? We're seeing the New Jersey here.
Not much to say other than I just thought it was a nice photo of the ship, and seeing the Richelieu next to it. That's a pretty nice looking ship as well.
And they look fairly comparable in size. I don't know how much of a difference in size they were, but that's a pretty impressive battleship, especially for pre-French, use.
Right.
This is a very interesting photo. This is a Wisconsin in Pearl in 1944, and she is docked right adjacent to the remains of the USS Oklahoma after she had been
Yes.
righted back, and for salvage.
Yes.
Wow.
And that's a great one just because you can compare an Iowa class to what a dreadnought would have been, and look at the immense size difference between the two.
Yeah. Oh, Wolf Lord's here. Speaking of Wolf Lord,
Oh yes.
he said that French battleship USS Massachusetts fought her sister ship, the Jean Bart, during World War II. Wow.
Oh yeah, I knew Wolf was going to be excited when we started talking some Iowas here. Wolf is my resident warships guy. When I
Yes.
got a question, I go to Wolf.
Yeah. The size comparison between Oklahoma and Wisconsin is, oh,
Yeah, it's insane.
it is insane.
And a fun story, real quick.
Yeah.
This involves the USS Texas. When I did the dry dock tour, one of the stories they told that stood out to me with like these old dreadnoughts, the guns could only get up to like a certain angle.
Mm-hmm.
And I forget exactly what degree that was. And when they needed to fire at a higher angle, what they would do is flood the opposite side of the ship so it would get a list so they could get the angle they need of the guns to fire at their intended target. Whereas, the newer ones like the Iowas and the South Dakotas, they didn't need to do that. But
Right.
it was just a fun little story they told us.
I've read about that too. Yeah, that's fascinating. Now I'm noticing this is a picture of Missouri, and again, I couldn't tell the time period that this was taken, but it's obviously before that transmitter antenna was added to the bow, so we know it's pre Vietnam. But
So
I'm noticing that there's a gun turret on the bow. Now did that go away? Because I don't think the gun turret is there today, is it?
I don't think it is. Um, you got me curious of something. I got a Missouri model up here. Let me look at that real quick.
Okay. And if King of Battleships and Warlord Wolf Lord uh, wants to step in and speak about that gun turret, that bow gun turret just kind of sticks out. Like I don't remember seeing that in later photos.
So there's actually two of them, and if you look on this model, it's got them on here. And as far as I know, this model would have been one of the original configurations that the ship had. So my guess is this would be no later, or Korean War at the absolute latest.
Gotcha. Okay. Wow. Okay, I'll move on to the next picture here. So we've now stepped into what is it, August 15th, 1945? The
Mhm.
BJ the signing over of surrender from Japan aboard the USS Missouri. We're looking at that.
King of
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, King of Battleships says they could only get up to 30 degrees, talking about the dreadnoughts, and Iowas could elevate theirs up to 45 degrees. And he says the bow gun turret is 40 millimeter, he thinks, and anti-aircraft guns.
If I remember correctly, there was a difference in their degree of angle of attack and all that, from the barrels between like the twin main turrets on the bow versus the aft turret, if I remember correctly. There was a slight difference in how they could angle themselves.
Yeah, and Wolf is telling us none of those anti-aircraft guns are on the Iowas anymore. He thinks they were all took off in the refit that happened in the 80s.
Yeah, that would make sense. I've always thought it was really interesting how um, the let's see, that wasn't, yeah, that was the Emperor shows up in a top hat.
So that's actually not the Emperor. I
Oh,
forget the guy's name, but he was he of course says his name, and he says something to the effect of either acting on behalf or acting with the blessing of the Emperor. And I'm sorry, I apologize, I forget his name.
you know what? Yeah, I knew it wasn't the Emperor. I don't know why I said that, but that shows my lack of knowledge of a lot of this. Um, I, my brain can only handle so much, but he was
I'm with
definitely
you.
he was a what do you call it, an attaché. You know, he was
Hmm.
part of uh
Their delegation.
the delegation of the Emperor. But the fact that he showed
Yes,
up in top hat, I think in tails too, top hat and tails.
Looks like tails,
I think
yeah.
so.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's I've always had I bookend World War II for us. I've always had this thought, how with World War II for us, the United States, it's bookended with battleships.
yeah,
The Arizona Pearl Harbor, the signing of Japan's surrender right here on the decks of the Missouri.
right. And I think we're looking at, is that Douglas MacArthur that we were seeing sitting?
That is, yes,
Hmm.
yep, that is Douglas MacArthur.
Of all the Iowas, I would say that Missouri has the highest rank in history, mainly because of the surrender signing on board.
I would say she's the most famous one,
Yeah,
specifically because of this event. And
Mhm.
she was chosen because Truman, of course, was from Missouri, and I believe she was like the admiral's flagship at the time
right.
when the war came to the end.
Yeah,
And this is would be on the starboard side, forward section, where that actually happened. And if you like, I can show you on the model exactly where this is on the ship.
yeah. Show us really quick, and then I'll move on to the next picture.
So right here, where my index finger is, the surrender would have taken. It would have happened right here.
Wow. And every officer and crew on that ship is, has worked their way into getting a viewing spot for this
Yeah.
occasion.
Imagine being anyone on that ship at that time.
Right, right.
Yeah.
All right, I'll move on. Oh, here we go again with the delegation. You've got several Japanese officials there wearing
Yes.
top hats and tails.
Hey, a real quick tangent for a sec.
Yeah.
I posed this question to my audience one time. I just want to get you guys' opinions. Out of these two, which is the most famous ship that never sunk? The Missouri or the Queen Mary?
Oh golly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
tough.
it is tough because you've got a lot of people who are, have, especially anybody who might, who is still alive from that time period, that remembers, all of that.
King of Battleships answered our question as to who the gentleman is.
Ah,
Foreign Minister Memaru, and I'm going to butcher these names, guys. I'm sorry. Shigemitsu signed on behalf of the Emperor. General Yoshihiro Umezu signed for the Japanese army.
there we go. So we're skipped on to Korean War era, and this is a photograph of New Jersey firing her guns during Korean War. Now I'm not sure because I'm noticing that she's doing multiple salvos here, which was not normally a tactic in battle. It was more for a for a photo shoot basically. But was this actually a battle shoot? Do you think?
There's no when I look at the photo, there was no explanation in the detail of the photo, so I could not say for sure one way or another.
I know that
I could
I know that firing all 9 guns at the same time was like an extreme rare thing.
So a fun little story about that involving Big Whiskey, the Wisconsin. Um, During the Korean War, Wisconsin was shelling an area on in Korea. I forget exactly where it was and what they were shelling, but they had return fire coming against them, and the ship was hit by this return fire. Fortunately, no lives were lost, and I think like 3 sailors were injured, and that was the extent of the damage.
Hmm.
Well, in response, Wisconsin aimed all 9 guns, fired on that spot, and just completely obliterated the area.
Really?
Yeah, and the comedic part to that story is I forget what it was. The USS Eaton, I think it was. They signaled the ship with lamps or some kind of way, and they were like, "Temper, temper."
Wow. Oh, I remember. I remember reading about that. Yes, about the
Yes.
temper tantrum. Yes.
So
Wow.
I always kind of crack the joke of, the Wisconsin is the ship with the bad temper.
With the bad temper, right? Exactly.
Hmm.
Let's see. I'll move on to this is a color photo of Wisconsin firing during the Korean War, which is a really great photo.
Yes, absolutely.
Let's see. We're moving on. So this is a shot of New Jersey, and it looks again all nine guns pointed towards the coastline, firing at once, and the gosh the pressure wave from the guns, you can see
Right.
the impact on the water surface
Mhm.
coming from those gun barrels. That's incredible.
So King is telling us something. You couldn't fire all 9 guns at the same time. Had to wait half a second to fire each barrel so the shield didn't throw each other off target. So
That makes a lot
not
of
all
sense.
exact, but close enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. So we're looking at a photograph of, according to the photograph, Wisconsin, New Jersey, and Iowa. They all seem to be laid up side by side by side. Is this a do you know anything about this photograph?
I I think this is when they. I don't remember if they were in mothball or if they were decommissioned at this point.
Okay.
But one thing I've not been clear about is New Jersey's got like these little dome-looking things in the forward section of the ship. You can see 2 at the bow, and then 3,
Oh,
one above the main turret, and then 2 to the sides.
I see that.
Um, I've
mhm.
never known exactly what those are. So if Wolf or Battleship, King of Battleships, can tell us what those are, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah. All right, moving on. So we're, in fact, I think it was it King of Battleships who was just bringing it up? Yeah, King of Battleships was just bringing up the collision with the USS Eaton. We're looking at the bow of the Wisconsin.
Yes.
Reminds me a lot of the Queen Mary's bow when she hit the Curacao. Um,
So yeah, in one small way, you could say the never finished Kentucky exists because what they did before they scrapped the hull of the Kentucky was they took the bow and attached it to Wisconsin.
that's wow.
Hmm.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
It's obvious that Wisconsin has a little more bow damage than the Queen Mary had received when she hit the Curacao. Um, but I'm assuming that she had very little internal flooding. It looks like she's underway with absolutely no problem.
Yeah, I'm sure she was totally fine.
Yeah.
Oh, and Wolf says the domes are covering up the anti-aircraft guns, so they're
Of
just
course.
covers.
Got it.
Hmm.
So we've stepped into Vietnam era, and we're looking at the New Jersey uh, at some kind of a firing during the war. Um, now, James
Yep.
and I were talking about this, and maybe you can go into explanation. Now, if everybody looks at the bow of the New Jersey, the one of the huge visual differences that I've noticed between like World War II, Korean War, and Vietnam is, or at least Vietnam with this, and then 80s with the other ships that were brought into back into service, was the addition of this big aerial antenna that's at her bow. Go ahead and explain a little bit about that.
So what I've learned about it, it's called a disc cone cage antenna, and it's a transmitter for high frequency radio. So New Jersey was the only battleship in the world in service at the time during the Vietnam War. They had her. They put New Jersey back into service because she was the last one that got a refit, upgrades, modernization. So they brought her back, and it was about that time in the '60s that they installed that antenna on there. The rest of them did not get it until they were reactivated in the '80s.
Hmm. Wow. All right, I'm gonna go back to the next picture. I know we're reaching the 2 hour and 20 minute mark. I'm gonna try and wrap it up by 2.5 hours.
Understood.
So we're looking now. We've jumped ahead again. We're in 1984. We're looking at the Iowa again, firing all 9 guns, not at the same time, but within
Close enough.
close enough. Uh, though these shots of her doing of any of the Iowas doing this during the 80s and during the Gulf War in the 90s, just blows my mind away. And I was particularly in this photograph. Look at the lateral movement that the entire ship makes in the water.
Mm-hmm.
Those guns are literally forcing that ship to what would be her port side. She must be doing a lateral move, at least it looks at least like 15, 20 feet.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned this earlier, and the more I think about it, you might be right. This might be like a publicity shot that they were doing. But yeah, the list that these guns cause when firing is just insane.
Yeah. Wow, incredible. And we're looking at again the Iowa here in 1984. This is an aerial shot, high overhead. Excuse me. That's what I get for drinking. I have to drink something because my mouth gets so dry. Um, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I go through that a lot when I stream, as you know.
Yes, but you do other things in your stream, but we won't talk about
Some things are just better left unsaid.
some things are better left unsaid. Correct. This is an incredible photo because you see the what's the word I'm looking for? The pressure wave again from the guns making their impression onto the water surface, and this aerial shot has captured the entire wave. Again, just unbelievable.
And you notice on the stern, we were talking about, the crane on the very stern. Now
Correct.
in the '80s, it looks like that's gone, and the stern is a landing pad for a helicopter.
Now was there a makeshift hangar for a helicopter to be basically based on board?
Not that I am aware of, but don't hold me to that.
Again, Wolf Lord or King of Battleships. I've never seen a structure.
No, I have not either.
Yeah, yeah. And it looks like there's some kind of a launch though. If you notice, there's a launch like a boat right aft of the aft turret.
Maybe a lifeboat.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big boat.
Mm.
And again, we're pretty sure that this is probably a publicity photo. Um, Oh, and now the angled boxes. If you look at the superstructure and just aft of the funnel of the aft funnel, you've got angled boxes, and then there's perpendicular boxes to the center line of the ship between the funnels. Are those missile launchers?
I believe those are the missile launchers.
Okay, Tomahawk missiles.
Correct. Yes,
Okay.
they were Tomahawk missiles.
Okay. All right. Moving along here.
And
Another great shot. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, during the Gulf War, Wisconsin and Missouri, I believe, are the only two that actually used them. They were the only ones who shelled, enemy locations.
Okay. So we're looking at the New Jersey firing, and I believe this is also, I think this is Gulf War era, correct?
I would say yes. And what I especially love about this is, the second forwardmost turret is firing in the completely other direction.
Yes.
I just think it's an amazing shot.
It is. Which obviously wouldn't make any sense in a actual battle scene, but it makes a great photograph.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
King of Battleships is saying the Iowas did not have a hangar even for seaplanes because if they got in battle, you could push the plane into the water.
Makes sense to me.
Yes.
And I'm assuming it sounds as though you had a landing pad for the helicopters, but they weren't necessarily on board while the ship was like like going across an ocean at where she was at sea. It was more for transporting stuff, either
That's what it seems
personnel,
like.
right?
Yeah.
That was my impression. Wolflord does say the USS Salem and her sisters had hangars for aircraft.
And they were heavy
And
cruisers.
they were heavy cruisers, which were like pocket battleships almost.
Which the helicopter transport thing makes even more sense now that I think about it, because I have a USS North Carolina model. And that ship also had the crane on the back for picking up the planes and whatnot. Yet the model that I have came with a helicopter. So the transportation thing makes sense, with me thinking about that.
Mm-hmm. Let's see here. We're again looking at the New Jersey. This is another shot, I think, also dating to Gulf War era. All three of her guns are facing now on her port side. But again, well, I was hearing something about. I think you were talking about this in your live stream last night about how one of the ships had so much fire, so much smoke from firing her guns that another ship had reported that they thought the ship was on fire.
So it's a story about the USS North Carolina, and it was during World War II. She was under attack, and her anti-aircraft guns were firing, and the rate in which she was firing them and the smoke that was coming off it got so intense. From what I understand, almost the entire ship was engulfed in the smoke. And the captain from the, I think it was the Enterprise, as Wolf pointed out last night, messaged North Carolina and asked, "Are you afire?" Which she wasn't.
That's crazy. All right, we'll take a look here. This is definitely a very modern photo. It's probably not far away from
Definitely
retirement, but New Jersey again firing her guns. Wow.
Now you've been on the. You said you've told me you've been on the Missouri. I mean, not Missouri, New Jersey, correct?
When I was 13 years old, she came. She was at Long Beach for Fleet Week. I got to go aboard the Missouri, I'm sorry, the New Jersey, and then 2 years later, I think it was about 15 or 16, the Nimitz and the USS Antietam,
Wow.
which was a guided missile cruiser, was in port. And the cool thing about the Nimitz was we weren't allowed to go. We couldn't go into the hangar deck, and we couldn't go into the island, but we could walk the flight deck. So what they did was they brought one elevator down, and they had the gangways and everything all set up to where you could board the elevator, and then they lifted that elevator up to the flight deck, we got to walk all around the flight deck. We went down to the aft end, and then we went down that elevator.
Nice.
Yeah. So even though we didn't get to see the island, we didn't get to see the hangars. To see the aircraft and all that on the flight deck was really cool, and to ride the elevators. I think that was the coolest part.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the Nimitz you got to go on.
And it was the Nimitz, yep. But for the best internal tour was definitely the Antietam. We got to see, the the combat command center and all that stuff. We got to see crew quarters. We saw the galleys. Yeah, everything.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh.
So this is the Wisconsin in 1990. I have to say they are real sleek ships.
They are.
For being a military vessel. They've got lines. They've got beautiful lines.
That's definitely a more recent shot of Wisconsin,
right?
Because you can see the mast on the bow.
Right, and this is definitely a more modern shot because we're seeing a Tomahawk missile being launched from Wisconsin during the Gulf War here.
Battleships made King of Battleships made a comment. Wisconsin also launched a drone to which the Iraqis surrendered to. The only time in history they couldn't see the ship over the horizon, so they surrendered to the drone.
Sounds about right. So now we're moving into the museum era. We're going to take a look at all four of the ships. Luckily, all four ships are museums now. This is the USS Iowa in her museum ship condition. I don't know how old this picture is. Do you know?
I do not. I believe the ship was handed over as recently as 2012, so maybe around then. I'm not certain though.
She's changed locations about 3 times since she's.
Okay. I did not know that.
Yeah, she was originally like up near the cruise terminal. Then she moved south of the cruise terminal, and now they're wanting to move her again. They want to move her a little further south in the channel. Yeah.
Any reason for that?
They want to expand the cruise terminal. That's basically what.
Of course.
Yeah. Again, we're looking at the Iowa.
Which, by the way, is about a 20-minute drive or so, as I understand it, from the Queen Mary.
Oh, less than that. Probably more like.
There you go.
Yeah, it's straight over Terminal Island and across. Unless you run into traffic, you shouldn't have any problem.
Right.
Yeah. So here we're seeing the Missouri. Actually, looks like she's being brought into Pearl to become a museum ship.
This one's significant because I understand it. This is her last sailing, and she is arriving at Pearl Harbor in this photo to become a museum ship.
So she's not even really under power. She's being towed.
That's what it looks like. I mean, you got the line here at the bow.
Yeah, exactly. And then I'll blow that up a little bit here, but this is the Missouri Today. Boy, I'd love to play that Battleship movie scene, but I'll get copyright dinged for that one.
Right. It's the only good part of the movie.
Yep, pretty much. So we're looking at the Wisconsin at her in her museum life now. And now the Wisconsin. So I've been aboard the New Jersey. I've seen the Iowa. I've seen the Missouri from the air.
Amazing.
But I have never laid eyes on the Wisconsin before. Where is she at?
She is in Norfolk, Virginia.
She's in Norfolk, Virginia. Okay.
Yes, geographically, she's the closest one to me.
Okay. And again, the Wisconsin.
There's an amazing shot, and I didn't get to send it to you. If you look at the very tip of the bow, there's a street that runs down there. And when you're driving up this street in the direction of the ship, she just looks massive. It's unbelievable.
Wow. So we're looking at the New Jersey, which just to give you everybody a little understanding where she's located. She's on the Delaware River in Philadelphia. She is literally like less than a mile. Oh, probably even less than a half mile from the SS United States. You could probably actually see the New Jersey if you were standing on the stern of the SS United States today. So
when you go, you're getting 2 for 1.
yeah. So when I make my trip to go see the New Jersey, I will definitely be making a trip to the SS United States, at least to see her from the outside gates. I am trying to see if I can make any kind of connections to get something more. But yeah, I will definitely be making. I will be paying some homage to her.
Definitely get as close as you can legally get.
As close as I can legally get, or as close as I can get without getting into trouble. I don't know about legally.
Well, that's your choice. So I'm just erring on the side of caution.
Exactly. Now, to let everybody know, on March 21st, which is let's see, March 31st is what day? Is that Thursday?
Let me see.
Let's pull up the calendar.
Yes, that is a Thursday.
So on Thursday, March 21st, unless there's any kind of delay or weather conditions that may change the situation, the New Jersey is supposed to move by tugboats down the Delaware River to her positioning port for being placed into dry dock. She will pass by the SS United States. This is all going to be covered by, I'm sure, like multiple YouTube channels. The Battleship New Jersey channel is supposed to be having live streaming of the towing. It would be nice. She's obviously not going to have any kind of a horn, but they're at least going to pass by the SS United States. So I would love to see that image. But if you have the opportunity to get online and watch some of the live streaming of her moving down the Delaware, I would take advantage of that.
I really hope someone has the foresight to get a really good shot, or preferably video, with the big U in the forefront and the New Jersey going past her in the background.
Yep, I agree. And that was the last picture. We have reached the end.
Oh, okay.
I want to look at the chat really quick if we had any comments or questions. Wolf Lord says, fun fact, across from New Jersey is the USS Olympia. Oh, yes. I didn't know she was right across, really. The last ship
Very
still
nice.
to have served during the Spanish-American War. What, Wolf Lord, was Olympia related in class to the Maine? We'll have to wait for his response.
While we're waiting, did you guys get to watch any of the live stream of the undry docking of the Texas?
I saw some drone footage of not of the undry docking, but I saw her being moved out to be positioned for towing.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I didn't see any of the filling of the tub or anything. Did you?
I didn't get to see the whole stream, but they were still basically prepping her to be moved when I was forced to stop watching.
Shiloh, have you been aboard the Iowa?
No, because when we went to go, we went close to closing time.
So that's something we should maybe plan on doing when you make a trip up, to the Queen Mary. Is we'll do an Iowa day.
Yeah.
Yes, you should, and get pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So
there is one thing unique to the Iowa. So a little fact about her during World War II. FDR sailed on the Iowa to meetings in Cairo and Tehran with Churchill and Stalin. And they had a bathtub installed on the Iowa for him. He was not able to use it because of his paralysis, but I've never known if they left it on the ship or if they ever removed it at some point.
So it's funny how vehicles, and I'm referring to ships, planes, trains, have all had special equipment built in to handle Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
Mm.
Indeed.
Uh, special bathtubs, special elevator or chair lifts. I'm familiar with the Ferdinand Magellan, which was a private railroad car. It was a Pullman business car that was modified for presidential use later in his presidency. But before that, it was just a regular Pullman leasable car, and he had leased it numerous times. But when wartime broke out, they realized that they needed to uh, protect it. So they put, they added armored
Right.
plating, they added like 2-inch thick glass, um, but they wanted to be able to either take him off the train or bring him onto the train in a much quicker manner. So they installed a
Yeah.
small elevator, like that would be able to lift him up into the car, and they did the same thing on um was a modified, I think it was a modified military transport plane that he had used as well. That got the same treatment. Just fascinating stuff, with all, and I knew about the bathtub on the Iowa. Yeah, that's incredible. Uh, Wolflord said no. Olympia isn't a sister to the USS Maine, so we got that cleared out.